We always distinguish the government officials that have been to CES versus those that have not. Those that have been to CES see the promise of innovations, the promise of self-driving. They see what AI and generative AI can do, and they get excited by it. And they realize that life can be made better.
The world around us is changing faster than ever before. Ideas once only imagined in science fiction are becoming a reality. Throughout the course of our amazing 23-episode season, we'll speak to some of the greatest minds in robotics and artificial intelligence to discuss the groundbreaking work that's fueling it all. I'm your host, Ryan Marine. Join me and my co-host, Paul Mitchell, the president of the Indy Autonomous Challenge, and see why we call this the Inside Track. At the end of our last episode, you may have heard we were going to be speaking with retired 4-star Air Force General Gene Renuart. But with CES 2024 in full swing this week, we decided now would be the perfect time to share our conversation with Gary Shapiro, CEO of the Consumer Technology Association and lead producer of CES. We'll discuss what leaders within the industry can do to highlight more positive use cases for AI and machine learning so that the general public understands that autonomous vehicles aren't as scary as last year's congressional hearings might have made them seem. First of all, I just wanted to say thanks for rolling out the red carpet for us the last couple of years at CES, bringing Indy Autonomous Challenge out to Las Vegas. And, from our perspective, it certainly seems like a great fit. But how has it been from the CES side of things, having IAC as part of the program?
Well, thank you. You guys have been wonderful partners. You produced a very, very exciting dimension to CES that we haven't had before. And your focus on self-driving and the way you've done it in a competitive way and made it exciting and gotten people from all around the world involved is just spectacular. So, we love the partnership and we want it to continue.
Well, certainly you and CES, you're at the forefront of anything consumer technology, and AI is the buzzword right now. It's on everybody's lips. And, when you look at how it is presented, often it is dichotomous. On one hand, you have people talking about all of the benefits to society that AI will bring. On the other hand, you have those that see it and have a little bit of fear in their hearts when they talk about AI. How do you view AI as it creeps into our everyday life? And what examples can you bring up of AI touching our lives in a positive manner?
Well, AI, like any new form of technology that mankind has tamed or sought to tame, is something that has good things and bad things. And we figure out how to deal with it, whether it's the invention of the wheel, the taming of fire, the printing press, the radio, the computer, the television, the internet, you name it. Every new technology has had benefits, and there's ways it can be used to cause harm. Our challenge as an association representing the industry that will make a lot of the products is to make sure the government has policies which focus on specific harms, but don't make everything illegal, and make sure that new entrants can come into the marketplace. AI is something that can be, there's a lot of good already we can see on the path forward. For example, in healthcare, medical researchers will not only discover new cures for diseases, but they'll be able to treat everybody at some point with a customized treatment that will allow them to get healthy quicker and safer and with greater statistical odds of surviving. And of course, with autonomous vehicles, as you know, the passenger car can not only it can empower those with disabilities, older Americans, and it'll also create a whole new industry, a new focus that'll allow people to do things in a way they've never done before, which is really very exciting. And we'll also see it in the fact that we have an acute driver shortage for truck drivers in the United States. We're looking, over 64,000 truck drivers short right today, but it's not getting any better. And obviously the sustainability, efficiency, and most significantly, I think for the world, is they're safer. With 1 million people dying around the world each year and multiples more being disabled, think about how that'll reduce the strain on our hospital system, on our tow trucks, on our collision repair shops. And it will cause some job dislocation. But, as I heard said recently, it won't take away jobs, but those people that will get the jobs will be using AI. And those that don't know how to use AI in some way, that may be something they'd have to choose pretty different occupation.
So Gary, just on this topic of autonomous vehicles and the application of AI. For us, with India Autonomous Challenge, we've tried to make autonomous vehicles exciting, but also to carry a very specific message, which is if an autonomous vehicle can drive at 180 miles an hour and pass another autonomous vehicle, safely and effectively, then it's probably capable of avoiding a collision or an accident on a highway at 70 miles an hour. And how can we find these use cases, like autonomous vehicles and saving lives on highway accidents, where AI is clearly for good, and elevate those storylines, elevate those applications of AI in a more public way, in a more exciting way? How do we elevate those stories and make people more aware of the good use cases, the good applications of AI? And is CES a venue to do that, I guess, is another part of that question.
Well, certainly AI will be a big part of CES 2024, our discussions. Self-driving, clearly you help make it center stage. I think that's important. The Biden administration is definitely de-emphasized self-driving in the favor of electric vehicles. So AI is basically a way of becoming a more reasonable middle ground that will make a difference. We could give the use cases. We'll certainly see a ton of them at CES. We'll see even more with generative AI, and people will see the benefits. Those with diseases that are rare, that maybe can't be cured that easily. And of course, self-driving itself. It's just the case is so obvious. There are some barriers we face. I mean, for example, in self-driving vehicles, we're the only major developed nation that doesn't have a national AI policy. Congress has not passed any legislation that sets out a strategy for AI. So the states are filling the gap, and that's causing enormous problems in just testing AI. You can't, drive from one state to another very easily. You might have to change your license plates and what you do, and there's different rules. That's unacceptable. And it's just a shame.
Where are they getting it right? You're saying that in terms of the landscape of self-driving vehicle legislation and regulation, that U.S., while we seem to be doing fairly well in the development and validation of the tech, but we're not creating the structures and the regulatory environment that will allow that tech to be deployed effectively as quickly as we should. Are you seeing parts of the world where they are doing it well that we should be looking to as examples?
Europe and China are doing a great job. China, they don't care about privacy, so forget that. They don't have trial lawyers, so forget that.
Yeah.
And they have a national strategy. They have encouraging it. Same thing in Europe as well. They've figured it out that this is AI, at least for self-driving, if that's what we're talking about specifically, is they have a policy, the EU, which encourages self-driving. And we're behind. And it's not that the Obama administration and the Trump and the Biden administration at the federal level, they're trying, but they need to change the laws from Congress so that not every car has to have a steering wheel. I mean, from an energy efficiency point of view, if a car doesn't have to have a steering wheel and all the things the driver needs and the dashboard and all that, you take a lot of money out of the car. It becomes more efficient. But I'll be honest, the unions don't like that. They want to build. So between them and the trial lawyers, the Biden administration and the Democrats in Congress have not been that favorable towards that. But there's bipartisan legislation that literally went through the House unanimously a few years ago, and it died in the Senate. And they're trying to get that resurrected pretty much. And there's a good chance it will happen. I've testified on it now a couple of times. It's interesting. But AI generally, though, if you step back and go up to the big picture, away from just self-driving, focus on artificial intelligence, which is broader in so many ways. I mean, that's what flies airplanes now. And Americans, they want artificial intelligence, but they want some safeguards because they've heard the horror story. So we've been working as an organization. We work with the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Biden administration, and we're looking at different things to support responsible and trustworthy AI. It's really important out there. So I think we are aligned with Europe on some of these things, and that's what we're advocating. Is let's go with our friends on a lot of these issues. Let's work together.
Before we move on from this topic of the applications of AI that are for good, I'm just thinking about CTA and your annual, global event of CES as really one of the places where so many technologies emerge and people interact with for the first time. So you think about the Internet of Things, the IoT revolution, when it first showed up, it shows up in these consumer electronics, right? And it's the application of IoT to some consumer product, and it's some either large company that's innovating or it's some startup that's bringing a product. You're going to see the same thing with AI, because whether it's generative AI, whether it's even autonomy, like the Roomba was existing long before autonomous cars were on the road, right? There was plenty of robotics deployed in consumer products. So I think the same thing's true with AI, and CES and these wonderful, big tent mix of companies that come every year and showcase their hardware and their software solutions. You guys are really at the cutting edge, because that technology environment and platform you represent is the early adopter of so many things. And so I can't wait to see CES 24-25 and the explosion I know is going to occur of AI applications being showcased.
Absolutely. You're correct. CES is where the future is shown, and we will see that in different applications, because consumers can understand and appreciate that. At the same time, whether it's factory automation or even, for example, Sweetgreens announcing that they're going to be using robotics and AI to make the salads in the future in all their fast food stores. Their salad places, which are pretty hot around the country now.
They're good. They're
The
good.
consumers will see the benefit and the changes. And, we're not replacing humans. We're just making them more efficient, more productive. We're an American Trade Association. We benefit from the fact that we're in the U.S. The U.S. has a great advantage of having one big marketplace for the most part, with one language, and it's a lot of investment capital and extraordinarily creative people that our culture encourages to innovate and create and do great things. And we see that obviously in Indianapolis with you guys. You're taking the bull by the horns. You're seeing where things are going, and you're figuring out how to deal with it. And I respect and admire that, because that's important for the culture and economy of our country, that we approach problems like that.
Well, you mentioned a couple of times the different roles that the industry plays in developing technology, the role that government plays, and you sit at a very interesting crossroads between the two as a liaison between the technology companies and the government that's looking to try and potentially regulate or at least understand this technology as it begins to emerge. So to be at the cutting edge of something like this, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know what all the potential use cases of this will be. What is your role? What is the role of the CTA to try and make sure that that balance that you're talking about is struck between the innovation on one side and the oversight that is required to make sure this is done responsibly?
Well, thanks for that question. It's a real important one for us. Our fundamental mission is to encourage innovation, especially in the U.S. And that's why we have the CES. That's why we do standards. That's why we do all sorts of consumer research, and obviously our public policy efforts. But in the public policy area, our view is the U.S. should lead the world on AI policy. And that means you have an organized national approach, which is what Americans want. And that requires leadership and policies that are friendly to innovation, that allows investment and experimentation, that's flexible and adaptable, that allows small players to get into the marketplace. That's a fundamental plank of our organization, is we always have to be there for the startups. That's why we have Eureka Park at CES with over 1,000 startups each year.
I don't disagree with you that having a national policy, a North Star, if you will, that the entire industry and country and entrepreneurs and investors can get behind is the goal that we want to strive toward, and you're fighting that fight. But let's assume it doesn't happen. Let's assume that Congress continues to be at gridlock and we can't get there. What can or should states be doing to fill that void? And are you seeing examples of that? And can states work with CTA? Can we leverage CES? I know there's a big delegation that we're bringing out from the state of Indiana that is part of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation that'll be out at CES 2024. But, do you see some of this falling back to innovative and creative states as a result of the lack of action at the federal level?
Yeah, that's a great observation. I think you're correct that states can distinguish themselves by encouraging innovation with policies. In fact, we grade every state every 2 years as to how innovation friendly they are in various criteria. And one of the criteria is their their focus on self-driving, whether they encourage it or not, or they discourage it. And as much as California has a lot of crazy laws, but their self-driving approach has actually been in many ways exemplary. They have a lot of things going on there. You mentioned some other states, including Indiana, which are very friendly towards self-driving. And they pay attention to that. We also do the same thing, by the way, with countries around the world. We rank them every couple of years on how innovation friendly they are. And having just spent 2 trips to Europe in the last month, they pay attention to those rankings. They want to be considered innovative. So we try to use a carrot and stick approach. CES is another approach. We always distinguish the government officials that have been to CES versus those that have not. Those that have been to CES see the promise of innovations, the promise of self-driving. They see what AI and generative AI can do, and they get excited by it. And they realize that, life can be made better. Plus, we had a really good assist from the United Nations. Just a few weeks ago, I was in New York at the opening of the General Assembly, and we had a press conference with the United Nations top technology official. And we were happy to announce that in addition to the human securities that we had talked about at CES 2023 in January in Las Vegas, which is focused on food production and access to healthcare and as well as clean air and clean water, they've now added a specific human security focused on technology.
When you're out proselytizing about the benefits of AI, one of the pushbacks you often get, as you alluded to earlier, is the potential for replacing the human in the workplace or what have you, the replacement of the human component. And as you've talked about earlier, there are ways that can be mitigated, and in many ways it creates more opportunities for the human. And I think we have an interesting microcosm with our autonomous race car within the racing industry, right? People look at the race car that's autonomous and they think, well, you're taking the racing driver out of the race car, when in fact that's not what IAC is about.
We get asked every single interview without fail, are you trying to replace the human race car driver? And the answer is no. We're trying to actually develop technologies that would make a human race car driver faster and safer, right? And the reality is we don't just need autonomous cars to drive around. We need them to drive around with people in them, right? So I think if you think about the fighter pilot that's flying an F-35, the blending of human ability with AI, the ability to now not just operate this incredible piece of innovation and machinery, which can more or less fly itself, but then to even add into that the potential for that same operator to be managing drones that may be operating in parallel with it. You said this earlier, Gary. It's not that AI replaces humans. It's that it augments human ability, and it creates situations in which a single human may be able to do things that otherwise feel like you have to have a superpower to accomplish, right? You can operate something in darkness. You can process information in a different way. So that is part of the message we carry within the Autonomous Challenge. And it's funny because, there's not that many human race car drivers in the world, right? Or at least not that many that are legally supposed to be racing their cars. And so, we get asked all the time, is that what you're doing? Are you coming after their jobs, or are you looking to replace them? It's the same conversation that you're going to have if you're developing AI in a taxi application or a trucking application, or maybe to work at a fast food store. How do you think about celebrating these situations where AI is enhancing human competencies and capabilities, and how do we carry that message forward? I don't know if you have any thoughts or reflections on that.
I agree with what you're saying in many ways. I mean, for example, I think I heard this from part of your team or someone associated with you that made total sense to me, is that if you think about it, when an ambulance picks up a seriously sick person with a heart attack or a stroke, there's the magic few minutes they have to get treatment or they die.
Yeah.
And obviously, fast moving ambulances, there's accidents, and AI, what you're doing in a high speed environment is helping them develop. Many, if not most of the new cars bought today in the United States have some form of collision avoidance, whether it's passive or active. And that's already saving people's lives. It doesn't mean the drivers are ending. And the human capability and the opportunity to enhance it in a way and do things safely, even in the racing world, is something which will save lives.
One of the things we've noticed with Indy Autonomous Challenge is this fusion of different technologies coming together. And we're spending a lot of time talking about AI, and AI is mostly a software coded thing. But an autonomous race car like we have running at 180 miles an hour or more, it has all kinds of tech in it. It has sensor fusion, machine learning. It has, advanced actuators and drive-by-wire systems. It has, high throughput computing, ultra low latency communication, wireless communication. So I'm wondering about this fusion of technologies that used to be viewed as, oh, well, that's a relevant technology for automotive, or that's a relevant technology for life sciences, or that's a relevant technology for consumer electronics. But those barriers seem to be breaking down. Is there such thing as sector-specific technology anymore, or is technology becoming so cross-cutting that it's not a sector-based phenomenon anymore?
That's a great question, and I think there is an answer. And I think that innovation doesn't occur in silos anymore. It's every breakthrough in one technology influences advances in others, and we have designed CES. And we view CES as a platform. It's akin to a media platform, and we're the curator or the editor. So we present things, and we've been building CES with a plan for over 20 years now on the basis that all these different verticals, from mobility to healthcare to semiconductors to content creation and many others, all affect each other. And these people have to talk to each other at a senior level for innovation to occur. Because if you think about what innovation is, it's really putting two disparate things together to create something new which has benefit. That's why CES, in our view, has become essential for the innovators around the world, is because they could get together one place for 4 days. Because whether it's, artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, stuff on the edge, or as you talk about sensor and fusion, these are all the infrastructure of the future, of the digital world that is going to make life better. And they are horizontal. They move across from one industry vertical to another. And the skills that actually the CEOs and leaders in business need now, it used to be very focused on one area like engineering or accounting or HR or something else. And now it's the ability to step above all that and see the bigger picture, to reach out, to go cross-cultural, to develop, to find out where the best people are, to be a motivator, to be a leader by example, to have, but also the human element isn't lost, especially with what the world's been going through the last few years with COVID and the conflicts we're seeing, is you need to be able to have some human resources skills and to be able to deal with people and to lead people, to inspire, to encourage, to share some genuine feeling with people.
One closing comment and question. CTA is an American organization, and CES is a U.S. American event, and Indy Autonomous Challenge is a U.S. event. And yet we know that in order for us to do what we're doing, we have to have these deep and broad connections with companies and universities and governments around the world. And, CES, you've had this great relationship the last couple of years with United Nations, and you travel a lot, right, throughout the world. And yet this marquee event is in the U.S. It's in Las Vegas. It's always in January. It attracts this massive audience, but you know that you can't reach everybody in Las Vegas in January in the United States. I know that you guys do have these kind of satellite activities and events and activations in other parts of the world, but it strikes me that, if there was a way for to bottle up what CES achieves during those 4 important days and to put it in locations where it could reach a broader market, it could reach more companies. How do you guys approach that? I'm sure that you get asked all the time by different governments or different companies to say, move CES here, or we've seen that in some cases where major auto shows have moved from a country to another country. Recently in Qatar, they had the Geneva Auto Show that was going on as part of their Formula One event. So I'm just curious, sort of, how do you balance the importance of kind of a U.S. market focus, which is also our focus, with this need to reach a broader audience? We did it by running a race in Monza. I don't know if we've talked since that has happened, but we had been holding races only in the United States, and we decided, okay, we've got so much interest in other parts of the world, so we ran an event in Monza in Italy. But just curious about your thoughts on the global influence that CES has, and how do you take advantage of that?
Well, we are an American group, and we count Canada as being our ally. So we have Canadian American companies. You have to be either based in or have an office in Canada or the US to be part of our association. But the show is broader than that. And as long as you're not right now a Russian exhibitor, I think you're welcome. And, no violations of US laws. There's various lists that our federal government is created, and we don't allow exhibitors from those lists. But what we do is we are a global event. We have more than 1 out of 3 attendees come from outside the United States, and that's very important to us. We've got a lot of direct flights from around the world that are going to Las Vegas, and we expect a very, very strong turnout in January. But we also have 5,000 or so press that come to the show, and we count on them to get the word out throughout the world. And that's been a very effective strategy. We had an event 3 weeks ago in Paris. Same thing. It was very successful, especially focusing on startups. And I'm going to Korea on Saturday, and we don't have an event there yet, but I'm sure we'll get requests and have discussions about that, because Korea is actually a country, shocking for me to even discover. They're second most now after the U.S. in terms of participation in CES. With they had almost 400 exhibitors in 2023, and probably more in 2024.
Wonderful.
It's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for your insight and your time, and can't wait to see you and everything that you have in store in Las Vegas come January.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you guys, the Indianapolis Autonomous Challenge in Vegas. Very exciting.
We will be there again, as always.
That was Gary Shapiro, CEO of the Consumer Technology Association and Master of Ceremonies for CES. Before we go off and explore the sprawling maze that is this year's showcase, we hope that Gary, Paul, and I have shared some insight into the question of where the combination of autonomous vehicles, collaborative innovation, and responsible policy will land. Next week, we'll share our conversation with retired 4-star Air Force General Gene Renuart to talk about why autonomous racing is a national security asset for the United States.